Good morning. It's Tuesday, October 27, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, as a wave of violence continues to plague the region, Israel remembers its former Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, who was assassinated 20 years ago for his pursuit of peace. Processed meat can cause cancer, and red meat is bad for you. The World Health Organization makes a new ruling on dietary requirements. And later on in the show, the new James Bond movie Spectre is out. We'll shake up some martinis. Good morning, I'm Meredith Ross, and we begin here in Israel, where the wave of violence continues. An Israeli soldier was critically wounded in the West Bank settlement of Kiryat Arba yesterday, with a second stabbing attack foiled in Hebron, resulting in the death of the assailant. In addition, a rocket was fired from Gaza into Israel, spurring the IDF to retaliate with airstrikes on Hamas targets. No one was injured in either attack. Also yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu raised the prospect of revoking the resident status of Palestinians living in East Jerusalem, the place where a majority of assailants in the recent spate of violence have hailed from. The Flashpoint Temple Mount compound also remains in the spotlight, with disputes rising yesterday over the implementation of a plan to install security cameras on the holy site. The Jordanian overseers of the compound claim that Israeli authorities prevented them from putting up new cameras, despite a deal reached over the weekend between Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority in an attempt to defuse tensions over the holy site. And joining us now in studio is our diplomatic correspondent, Tal Shalev. Good morning, Tal. And Netanyahu's former spokesman, Aviv Bushkin.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you very much for being here. So, Tal, let's begin with you. Yesterday, Netanyahu made a lot of politically charged statements. What does that mean? Can you sum that up for us?
Well, Netanyahu is under a lot of political pressure. We do know this. But yesterday he comes and appears in front of the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, and that is where he explains to the Knesset members, the members of the committee, some things regarding the situation on Temple Mount and the diplomatic efforts that have been going underway in the past few weeks. And as usual, this is a closed meeting, but details of the meeting do leak to the press, and this what a controversial statement, one might say, that in which Netanyahu says, I don't want a binational state, but we need to control all of the territory in the foreseeable future. This makes headlines, and this, of course, has to do with the fact that all of these events coincide with the 20-year anniversary of Rabin's assassination. So everything creates a lot of uproar. But we should point out that Netanyahu is trying very much to restrain the situation and to bring down the flames, especially on the Israeli part. Yesterday, and he's having problems within his own government. Yesterday, his deputy foreign minister, Tzipi Chotoveli, goes on the Knesset channel, one of the Israeli TV channels, and in an interview says that it's her dream to see an Israeli flag rise on Temple Mount. Netanyahu immediately has to do damage control, because we are now in a situation where we're trying to bring down the flames. He calls her for clarification, and he publishes himself a clarification. But everything now Netanyahu is trying to do is try to just regain control or restore control, or at least remain in control of the situation and try to bring the flames down. This is part of the understandings reached between Israel and Jordan by Secretary Kerry over the weekend.
And it's also perhaps a part of the criticism that he's only trying to control the situation as of right now and not necessarily solve it, just keep it under control. But you know Netanyahu, where is his head at right now with making all of these statements?
It's true, as mentioned. I think his main concern is that he cannot create a coherent one voice from his own constituency or from the government. When you have Tzipi Chotoveli and the other right members in his coalition, this is his main problem at the moment. I don't think that he thinks that it's high time to promote or find a way to create some kind of a new peace negotiations with the Palestinians. I think that, if I may say, and I'm not working with him right now, he's quite fed up with the effort of doing something with the Palestinians, both because he doesn't believe them, and second, for political reasons. He already tried it in 1997 and 98, and he lost his power only because he went too much, according to the right-wingers, for the Palestinians. So I think that he'll try to keep the situation as is and to try to lower the flames.
And some of the Prime Minister's statements were made yesterday at a memorial that marked the 20th anniversary of the assassination of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in Jerusalem. Netanyahu and President Reuven Rivlin attended the memorial service marking the Jewish calendar date of the murder, where they eulogized the general turned statesman, saying that he left a legacy of a relentless battle against terror while continuing to reach out for peace. Now, regarding the changes that have transpired in Israeli society since Rabin's death and the political realities which have led to the current state of affairs, many Israelis simply ask what happened. We'll talk about this shortly in studio, but first let's take a look at Tal's report and take it from there.
In the past 20 years, the annual memorials marking the assassination of former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin are always sensitive days. This year, as commemoration events fall against the backdrop of the latest uptick in Israeli-Palestinian violence, intensified tensions are clearly felt.
The 3 shots the murderer fired into Yitzhak's back did not only hurt him, they also struck at the heart of Israeli democracy and stained its face blacker than black.
Hundreds of people gathered to remember Rabin at the official memorial ceremony on Mount Herzl, but the spotlight, as always, was on Rabin's family and the Israeli Prime Minister. Back in the 90s, a younger Benjamin Netanyahu participated in a notorious right-wing demonstration in which incitement towards Rabin reached new records, with loud chants calling for his death. The Rabin family believes Netanyahu shares responsibility for the inciting atmosphere which led to the assassination and are traditionally hostile towards the man who is now Prime Minister.
A great rift hit our national home 2 decades ago. It hurt, first of all, you, the Rabin family, Leah of blessed memory, Dalia and Yuval, and the grandchildren, and Rachel. I know it's a wound which will not heal, but it's not only you the despicable murder affected. It left all of us bruised and in pain. A Jewish assassin killed a prime minister in Israel.
At Monday's commemoration, Netanyahu mainly addressed the hovering reality of another wave of Palestinian terror. For the family, this is testimony to the fact that nothing much has remained from Rabin's legacy of peace.
And I thought this darkness, which befell us, the family, would lead to illumination, to unity of purpose, to the understanding that the shots in the square and the terrible murder were, more than anything, a rallying cry for democracy. But my understanding was naive. Since then, I confront loathing, which come from the depth of dark hatred, and which are growing and claiming an increasing space in public discourse.
20 years after the murder, Rabin's memory might be fading, but the political debate on the lessons to be learned is as vivid as ever. It's an unhealed wound that might leave a scar on Israel forever. Tal Shalev, I-24 News, Jerusalem.
So, Aviv, you worked with Netanyahu right after the murder of Rabin. What were his feelings? What were his reaction to the murder? Not necessarily publicly. I mean, what were they internally?
I can tell you what he told me. Before Rabin's assassination, he thought that he can win the elections because more than as he saw it, and as the polls indicated that he can win the elections, proving that the Oslo Accord, or the way Rabin tried to progress with the Oslo Accord, was wrong. And the people were divided, like 50-50, and he thought he can change it. When Rabin was assassinated, he thought at the beginning that, I'm not talking about the tragedy, I'm talking about politics at the moment, he thought that this will endanger his chances to become a prime minister. I think that Netanyahu, in his first term, had to cope with the hatred and with the fact that he was accused not only for the incitement prior to Rabin's assassination, but for the fact that he, in a way, is killing the Oslo dream.
Mm-hmm. And he was a participant in this rally, this right-wing rally against Rabin, which just made him look even worse. Mm-hmm. But Tom, where do you think he sees himself, like in a historic perspective, Netanyahu?
Where does Netanyahu see? We could write a book about that one.
In comparison to Rabin, you know, especially in this week leading up to the memorial.
Well, I should say that it's a very absurd situation when you watch, when you come every year, it's every year, Philip, when you come to the annual Rabin memorial, you see Rabin's family, who definitely do see Netanyahu as responsible for the assassination or for the atmosphere that led to the assassination.
Wow.
And they
at the beginning, they were not willing even to shake his hand.
Exactly.
Wow.
He was a persona non grata, but in the past few years, he's prime minister, so officially he's obliged to be there, and by protocol, he has to give a speech. And one should just look at the faces on the Rabin family when Netanyahu speaks. It's very visible. The hostility is extremely visible. So I do, and many times in these speeches, Netanyahu likes, on the one hand, to present himself as someone who continues Rabin's legacy of a strong...
Especially in security, yes.
In security. Rabin was Mr. Security. He likes to build on that image. But, of course, at this specific audience, this doesn't work. And just to mention something about that demonstration, it was interesting enough, yesterday at the Israeli parliament, there was another ceremony, a special plenum meeting, and the leader of the opposition, Isaac Herzog, gave a very, very tough speech, very harsh speech, attacking Netanyahu. And at one point, he was referring to the Likud members, to the right-wing members in the Israeli parliament, and he said, you helped, you were silent in that demonstration. You didn't say anything when Rabin was called a traitor, and it actually created a very big uproar, a very strong response from the right wing, and this just shows that it's true, these divisions between left and right are very, very strong and evident today.
Yeah. But the two elements that we must put in order. First of all, when Netanyahu was elected after Rabin's assassination, he said that he's going to continue the agreements or abide to the agreements that were signed in Oslo, and he was the one who evacuated Hebron and gave some other concessions to the Palestinians according to the Oslo Accord. Then he lost his power, and he realized that the right-wingers will not support him any longer, and his political base, and he backed off from Oslo. This is one thing. The second thing, that unfortunately, after Rabin's assassination, some elements in our society, and I don't want to blame the Rabin family or others, made it too much politicized issue. You've even heard our former President Peres a few days ago that said that half of our people cried and half were mourning. You know, it's a tragedy, and it should be a tragedy and should be alleviated from politics.
So there was a big division in it. But I do want to tap in on that. We're also joined now on the phone by journalist Amnon Lord. Amnon, thank you so much for being with us.
Okay, good morning.
So you used to be a member of Peace Now, a leftist group, and today you are on the right-leaning side of the political map. What happened? I want to hear your story.
Well, I think that people who felt some responsibility about the state of Israel, the security, and not just about the camps, left and right, could have done what I have chose to do. And there are many people like this. The fact is that Netanyahu won the 1996 elections means that many of the people in Israel felt that the results after all the suicide bombings of the Oslo Accords were disastrous. But I don't think this is the main point. The main point is that what the divisions that we continue to see every year and the circular dispute about the assassination is just a proof of the enormous destruction that the assassination wrought about the Israeli society. I would say it was the most destructive act in Israel's history, more than any war.
So in that sense, do you think his death marked the end of perhaps the hope for the peace process for Israelis?
The problem is that unlike, let's say, a figure like Martin Luther King, that there is a wide consensus in the American society around the values that Dr. King represented. The so-called heritage of Rabin is divided into two: the military security, the nationalist heritage of a figure like Rabin, who liberated Jerusalem and all that, and the Rabin at the end of his career going in the peace process towards the PLO. This remained a very disputed issue, and we cannot unite around it. That's the problem.
I see. Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning with your comments. So, Aviv, any final remarks?
Yeah, this is one point that I, in a way, disagree with Mr. Lord, is that it's true that the society in Israel shifted more to the right. If it was split 50-50 in 96, now it shifted more to the right. But I think that more Israelis, even in the right, realize that in order to reach peace with the Palestinians, we need to give more concessions to the Palestinians, even in Jerusalem. This is something that even Rabin, late Rabin, was afraid even to mention.
And with Netanyahu's statements, especially talking about rescinding residency status, this would be
if we look to the future, I think that one of the things that can be learned from Rabin and maybe Barak afterwards, but also that in order to make concessions, the leader of Israel has to be someone that has a strong military background or can, Netanyahu is trying to be Mr. Security, but he wasn't chief of staff. He wasn't the IDF chief of staff. When Rabin and Barak did try to make territorial concessions, it was perceived in a totally different way. And actually, even today, the military establishment in Israel supports separation from the Palestinians for pure security reasons. Nothing to do with politics, just security reasons. So this is, I think, one of the lessons to be learned.
It's all true, but now people here realize that you have to, you have to look very careful who your partner is. It's not late Arafat that was a very strong leader. There are more and more elements. So everybody is striving for peace, but Netanyahu's best excuse is that you don't have a partner.
Certainly. Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you, Aviv and Tal, for being here this morning. And moving now to Europe, with a relatively fruitful emergency summit between European Union and Balkan leaders, they agreed on a 17-point plan to cooperate on managing arrivals of refugees through the Balkan Peninsula. 100,000 new spaces will be made available in reception centers along the main route from Greece towards Germany. And with Greece receiving more refugees than ever this week, the plan couldn't come at a better time. Also in the works, biometric data like fingerprinting to register and screen refugees before granting asylum or sending them home. All positive developments compared to the slow EU response, what we have spoken about before. But is it enough? The following report has the latest developments.
Another emergency summit on Europe's migrant crisis has been held in Brussels, with European Union and Balkan leaders agreeing on a 17-point plan to deal with the stream of migrants through the Balkan Peninsula. The heads of 11 EU states and 3 non-EU countries committed to new measures, which include creating another 100,000 spaces in refugee reception centers along the route from Greece towards Germany.
Sufficient temporary accommodation must be ensured along the Western Balkans route. We will increase reception capacities to 100,000 places in Greece and in the Western Balkans. I commend the Greek Prime Minister for his commitment.
More than 9,000 migrants arrived in Greece every day last week, the highest rate so far this year. Under the plan, Greece will open reception centers with enough room for 30,000 refugees by the end of the year. The UN's refugee body, the UNHCR, will provide another 50,000 spaces in Balkan countries, which are the most popular routes for migrants looking to travel north to Germany and Scandinavia. However, smaller countries along the Balkan route say their resources are stretched by the number of arrivals. Following the meeting in Brussels, Slovenia's prime minister expressed concern over countries closing their borders.
There is some fear in the air that Germany and consequently Austria as well could close their borders, which would lead to a domino effect, which would be quite a disaster, if I may say so, for the European Union.
More than 680,000 migrants and refugees have crossed to Europe by sea so far this year from the Middle East, Africa and Asia, according to the International Organization for Migration. The conflict in Syria continues to be the biggest driver of the current wave of migration.
And we're joined now from Geneva by spokesman for the International Organization of Migration, or IOM, Joel Millman. Good morning, Joel. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
So your organization works closely with governments on migration issues. Are these new measures enough, in your opinion?
Well, they're an important step. 100,000 in that route is extremely important because of the winter coming on. Some of the reports we're seeing of people marching through wet and slogging, muddy conditions are just the beginning of what could be a very difficult passage. Unlikely to be as lethal as the sea route, but we're equally concerned with how many people are still trying to cross in this cold weather and how many deaths there have been. I believe that we have now reached the point of fatalities equal to all of last year, still with more than 2 months to go in this year. And that's not something we're happy about.
And considering that, you know, just how massive this migration has become, you mentioned the winter months and the dangers that poses. Do you think that will slow the numbers?
We used to think so. We used to think in winter months the numbers would come down, but we learned last winter that that didn't happen. And since the numbers that are stacked up in Greece, in Turkey and other places, and even still in Libya, indicate that the movement of this people is continuing, either voluntarily or coerced by criminal gangs. In either case, doesn't seem to be any stopping of what's getting on the waters. And you know, we saw reports yesterday of between 30 and 45 bodies washing up in Libya. That's not something we expect to end for any reason, and winter won't be that reason.
Yeah, and you know, last question. I mean, you mentioned 100,000 spaces is somewhere to start. It's a good number, but 9,000 migrants arrived each day last week in Greece. I mean, these numbers are just
that's correct. Just
unbelievable. How can 100,000 spaces possibly cover that?
Well, I mean, 100,000 covers the 10 days, let's say, or 11 days worth of entries, but theoretically, it shouldn't take 11 days to get from the Greek islands to Germany. I mean, it's a flight of only a couple of hours, and obviously some people are going to have to take their time moving by land. I visited the borders of Greece and Macedonia and Greece and Serbia last month and found that migrants in the thousands are able to clear each of those posts within a few hours, sometimes a day. So if people are moving and joining up with family and getting funding from other parts of their extended family around the world to get on transportation, they won't necessarily need all these spots. We just think having the shelters and reception centers available in this cold weather is an important emergency step, but not as a permanent settlement location.
And considering that it's winter, it certainly does come at the right time. Any improvement is some improvement. Joel Millman, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And also, we're joined now in studio by Channel 2 Foreign Affairs editor Arad Nir. Good morning, Arad.
Good morning, Meredith.
Very upsetting, all these numbers, and considering the weather conditions that await these people who don't come equipped with winter clothes from the Middle East. So two things. Leaders seem to be in agreement with two things. That these are European leaders, of course, that the migrant crisis needs to be dealt with, and also that Turkey seems to be the solution here.
No doubt. Well, let's start with Turkey.
Let's begin with Turkey.
For 4 years now, since the war in Syria, the civil war in Syria started, Turkey's policy is open door towards the refugees that are fleeing the civil war there. Bringing to a situation in which Turkey is hosting now more than 2 million refugees, more than 2 million Syrian refugees. Now, I'm saying hosting because they are not being granted as refugees. They're not being granted refugees status, I mean. They are being dealt with as guests. They are called guests. This is why the various international refugee organizations in various countries around the world cannot accept them as refugees because of the paperwork. This is why, as we heard earlier, they cannot board a flight in Istanbul with the proper papers and land 3 hours later in Munich. They have to walk by foot if they want to do it. This is part of the reason. Now, the president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is using these humanitarian crisis as a leverage to try and reach some political gains in his own domain.
Of course.
Meaning he wants the international community to get rid of President Assad in Syria. So what he's doing now, you know, for 4 years, the problem was in Turkey. We were dealing with African migrants to Europe, not with Syrian migrants to Europe. This was not the problem at the time. What does Erdogan do in the last, or since the beginning of this year? He actually eased or he released the grip on the borders of Turkey, on the illegal borders of Turkey, allowing the refugees to continue their way from Turkey into the promised land of Europe.
Sure.
And this is why he is shifting now, this is how he is shifting now the problem from Turkey to Europe, trying to put pressure on Europe to operate militarily in Syria. And I'm afraid, and now we get to the European part of the equation, and I'm afraid that, you know, with as many action plans as they will phrase over there in Europe, the only way to solve this problem is of magnanimous nature. No words are strong enough to describe it. The only way is to find a solution to the problem in Syria,
Certainly.
be it
this
militarily,
is, obviously the
be
root
it
of the
diplomatically.
Issue. The root of the issue, but also joining us for a bit, we're joined now by I-24 News correspondent in Germany, Polina Garayev. Thank you so much for being with us, Polina. So I just want to mention a report that was released in a newspaper there. A security document obtained revealed that German intelligence and security agencies have called the mass migration an imported security problem, and they're citing Islamic extremism and especially Arab anti-Semitism. So what was the reaction in Germany to that report?
This report is joined by general concern that not only of importing anti-Semitism, but also by importing misogyny, religious conflicts, and other cultural characteristics that might not conform with the German way of life. And this is generating a lot of concern in Germany, but also as part of a growing understanding that Germany is now faced with the need to integrate people which are different in their culture, perhaps in their values, but it's not seen as a challenge that cannot be faced. The president of the Central Council of Jews here in Germany also warned of that himself, that the people coming in often are raised in an environment that demonizes Israel, and that they tend to also deflect those emotions on the general Jewish community. But even his suggestion was that we need to accelerate their integration here in our society and not to push them away. So it seems as a manageable problem, but it is generating concern.
Paulina, thank you so much for these updates from Germany, and also Rod, thank you very much for being here in studio with your comments. And coming up next, the World Health Organization's announcement that processed meat such as bacon, sausages, and ham causes cancer is sending the meat industry into a PR battle. We'll touch on that, but first let's hear some more of this morning's headlines. Welcome back. Let's say hello and good morning to I-24 News senior editor Ruti Sinai, who joins us to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines. Good morning, Ruti.
Meredith. Yes, not such a dark morning outside.
I know.
The weather.
And some of us without power, as we just discussed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so as you may have heard, there was a tremendous earthquake in the Pakistan-India region yesterday, Afghanistan, 7.7 on the Richter scale, nearly 300 dead, and the numbers keep going up, obviously, naturally, as more bodies are found and more roads are broken through to get to people, and so on. It's the hardest hit areas, near the Khyber Pass in Pakistan. Thousands injured, the usual horrible stories of earthquakes, heartbreaking, really.
And as you said, the numbers are just going to keep going up because infrastructure there is very weak as it is.
Okay, coming back to our region, interesting story this morning in the Times of Israel, which is a nifty website that we follow closely. We can see it in a minute, about 20,000 Israelis who, listen to this, are suing Facebook, class action suit filed in a New York court of law yesterday. And what they're saying essentially is that Facebook is responsible for not preventing incitement against Israelis and Jews. There we go. And for ignoring the incitement. Now, this is interesting. They're not asking for monetary damages. They're just asking basically for Facebook to, step up and take responsibility for allowing a lot of this incitement, which they claim has led to the deaths and injuries of
inspired attacks. I mean, a lot of these attackers that we've seen carrying out stabbings, for instance, are teenagers.
And as you know, this is being called, one of the names for this latest wave of violence is the Facebook Intifada, which in fact it is, because it is a very, Intifada is, by all accounts, very popular among Palestinian youths, young people. They read it, and some of them, a minority obviously, but it's always important to say, but are definitely inspired. And the main plaintiff in this suit is Richard Lakin, who's a 76-year-old man who was seriously, he's in critical condition actually still, injured in a shooting on a Jerusalem bus on the 13th of October. And there's plenty of evidence to show the cause and effect of this incitement on Facebook.
The big question is, how does Facebook really monitor that?
A very big question, and also there's a lot of questions of freedom of speech, and this will be an interesting case, just also on a principle and precedent point of view. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops. Okay, we're going to the New York Times now, which had a very interesting story about Russian ships being sighted, both mostly submarines, being sighted very close to underground cables, which carry basically the lifeblood of the Western world, its economy, its politics, its everything, all our lives basically, which go, the communications, everything from WhatsApp and Tumblr and Twitter to, major internet sites. And these submarines, these Russian ships, have been going too close for comfort, according to some Pentagon assessments. This is all very secret, so it's hard to know what the assessments are saying exactly. But the New York Times did talk to a bunch of people at the Pentagon, and who said that this is, sort of Cold War-style concern, except that now, in the past, what used to happen in the Cold War era was that occasionally they would cut the cable. But now, of course, we're much, much more dependent on all these cables and this kind of traffic for our daily lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Guatemala. Washington Post.
I think I can guess what the story is, Ruchi.
Yeah, we've got a comedian
on the news desk yesterday. What?
Jimmy Morales. He's a stand-up comic.
Donald Trump of Guatemala.
Yeah, he was just elected president. No one really knows what he stands for. Everybody knows that he stands for anti-corruption. The Guatemalans are sick and tired of corruption. They want some joy in their life, and they've got this guy. And I think we're doing him a disfavor by calling him the Donald Trump of, because he really is funny. Trump isn't always so funny.
Trump is funny, I think, in terms of people laughing at him.
Probably, but not with it. Yes. Anyway, this guy, he's done some. He painted his face black. BBC, was laughing at him that his manifesto is only 2 pages long, and so on. But some of these politicians don't stick to their manifestos anyway. So maybe better 2 pages of concise manifesto.
But this guy, has no governmental experience whatsoever, and he's just popular.
Yeah, but who knows? Give him a chance. I mean, they've tried other things.
We'll see. Well, I think, like you said, hopefully he'll bring them some joy. At least he's a funny guy.
At least that, yeah. But, if he doesn't do any damage, that's also good.
Exactly. Jimmy, keep it real.
And we have a very sad story after our joy at the Guatemalan stand-up comedian. A whale-watching boat capsized. Look at this photo. It's incredible. I've seen it all over. off the coast of British Columbia. These are very popular. I've been in one of these. I've been twice, actually, in one of these boats. You get on either on the Vancouver side or on the U.S. side, on the Seattle side, and you go out into the ocean, the Pacific, and for 3 hours, and you look for humpback whales and Pacific gray whales, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's incredibly impressive.
Once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, for some unexplained reason, this boat, which, its captains had 20 years of experience, seas were pretty calm. I mean, it's pretty choppy out there generally, but it wasn't bad weather or anything. Capsized. This swell came out of nowhere and tipped it over. People, as I said, 5 people, 4 of them British tourists and another Australian, I think, were pulled out of the water dead. 21 were rescued by various ships in the region and helicopters and stuff. But very, very sad story. I was just reading before I came into the studio that the same company had a boat capsize in 1998, so maybe the upkeep of their boats isn't so, I don't know, it's just speculation.
I mean,
there's an investigation.
You said a big swell came and they weren't expecting it. I mean, things can happen, but
it's not supposed to tip over.
Right, but it's just unfortunate because it's such an experience that so many people want to have, and so many people do it on a daily basis.
It's really a lot of fun.
Shocking. I wonder if this will affect the tourist industry a little bit, at least for the coming month.
Probably not. No. Anyway, it's the end of the season. It doesn't. It's October. It's the end of the season. It only starts up again in March, I think. So there's time to kind of get over it.
It's a sad end to the season. Yeah, it's too
bad. If we have time for one more.
Time for one more.
Okay. So we've got another WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks strikes again.
Okay.
There we go. New batch of documents. This is, I don't know if you remember, there was a high school student who managed to hack into John Brennan's personal email account from a period actually when he was out of government. He was working for a private defense contractor. Nonetheless, he hacked in, and but this is unrelated to this high school student. Somebody managed to get their hands on more emails, among other things, showing that he contributed to Barack Obama's campaign when he was a private contractor and he got a Defense Department contract. Sounds a bit iffy. Yeah. And so, there you have it. That's our press for today.
Interesting stuff. Well, I like the Jimmy Morales story. I'd say that's my favorite one. That was certainly a surprise. Well, Ruchi, thank you so much for this.
Sure.
And meat, yes, meat. Is it good for you, bad for you? So bad it's causing cancer, so says the World Health Organization. According to a report issued yesterday by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the consumption of 50 grams of processed meats a day, such as bacon, sausages, and ham, increases the chance of developing bowel cancer by 18%. So red meat, too, is, quote, probably carcinogenic, but the WHO says there is less evidence for that, adding that it does have health benefits. So the announcement made headlines around the world and has enormous ramifications for the global meat industry, was immediately met by claims that the research was inadequate and the science was faulty. To break it all down, hopefully better than our bodies break down processed meat, we are joined in studio by crisis management specialist Zev Yanai. Thanks so much for being here, Zev.
Good morning.
And also staying with us in studio to comment on this bit is Ruchi Sinai. Thanks for staying with us. But first, let's take a look at the next report, and we'll take it from there.
Alarming news tonight about foods so many of us eat every day. Bacon, hot dogs, lunch meat, all now classified in the same category as cigarettes and asbestos. They can cause cancer, according to the World Health Organization, and that's not all. The WHO Advisory Committee also finding that unprocessed red meat is probably carcinogenic. The report, which was based on an analysis of more than 800 studies, asserts that simply eating 50 grams of processed meat each day can increase the risk of colon cancer by 18%. Here's some food for thought. The 50 grams cited in the report is the equivalent of 1.8 ounces of meat. But a typical deli sandwich has more than 4.5 ounces of meat. And this is what 1.8 ounces looks like. According to the report, 34,000 cancer deaths could be attributed to diets high in processed meat in 2012. That's out of the 8.2 million deaths caused worldwide by cancer. To put that in perspective, 1 million of those deaths could be attributed to smoking. The WHO panel did say red meat does have nutritional value, but the meat industry is crying foul. The North American Meat Institute telling ABC News in a statement that classifying red and processed meat as cancer hazards defies both common sense and numerous studies showing no correlation between meat and cancer.
So this is a PR nightmare for the meat industry, Zev. And as a crisis management specialist, what would your game plan be right now?
Actually, what they should do and what they're doing is imitating whatever the tobacco companies did, the dairy industry and oil and automobile industries are doing when they're fighting the global warming agenda. They should kill and revive. Very, very simply. They should kill the legitimacy of the report while reviving the legitimacy of their products. Killing the legitimacy of the report is very easy. You hire a bunch of scientists and physicians. You tell them what to do. They go and undermine the basic assumptions of the research, which is already done, by the way, by independent people all around the world, because, frankly, nobody wants to give up on the red meat. Okay? The second thing is revive the legitimacy of your product. Research, there are 940 ingredients that have been understood as cancerous. Okay, wow, that's an amazing thing. Let's see what's going on. People, they say all over there in one of the scientists or one of the lobbyists that try to proclaim into doing red meat, into eating red meat, he's saying, you know, the only things that you can use right now are yoga pants because they have, you know, no cancerous ingredients in them. So what you should do, you should talk about the ways that you raise your meat. There are no bad ways, you know, to raise red meat, but you don't use any poisonous ingredients in, you know, the fields. You don't do anything wrong, you know, while you process the meat, and then you get a very good product when you buy it. So right now, what we want to do is kill and revive. This is it.
But you know, you've got a very distinguished panel coming out with this report about the danger. I mean, you've got, you know, they went through meta studies. They went through hundreds of studies, and this is linked to the World Health Organization. I mean, these are respectable people. It's not that easy to kill.
Okay. When you want to kill those people, use each crack and window to get in and to find, you know, the missing link in it. One of the things they didn't actually distinguish between if salty meat, farm salted meat, to industrial chemical-induced meat. So, you know, the common man says, you know, there's a difference between those two, between a very nice product that I can buy at the farmers or something that I buy at the supermarket. So you cause a sort of misunderstanding. People they don't really want to dig in, and they say, well, you know what the hell? We smoke even though it's cancerous. We do dairy even though it's not good for our food. We do a lot of things that are bad for us. We breathe the air outside here. So let's go on and eat some more meat. And,
so just minimize the problem and say that there are many other problems in the world. Driving your car is maybe a bigger risk and you know, being in danger. But, you know, Ruti, is this then a victory for vegans? I wonder if they're going to ride this wave,
It's Jerry Urpovsky's birthday today.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the I told you so, you know, school of thought. Look, I think it really all lies in a question of moderation. You know, I don't think, I mean, and they'll tell you too, you know, eating a bacon or a BLT sandwich, you know, once a week is not going to, you know, increase your risk of getting cancer. I do think that, you know, all kidding aside, and lobbyists and special interest groups that Zev was talking about obviously have a lot to lose here. But I do think that it's important to be very responsible about this. Not crazy, I'm sorry, not wild vegan and not, you know, the other side of the equation either.
Yeah, sure. And, you know, I just want to mention, like, I mean, we're running out of time here, but regarding red meat, processed meat was the main issue, but regarding red meat in particular, it said the red meat was probably carcinogenic based on limited evidence that it's actually causing cancer to humans. So I'm sure the, you know, the PR wave will also take those words, probably based on limited evidence, and really just go with that. But it's just a comment I'm making now because unfortunately we have run out of time. But Zev and Ruti, thank you so much for this input. And coming up next, the new James Bond movie Spectre is out, and we'll celebrate it shortly. But first, let's hear some more of this morning's headlines. Welcome back. It's still Tuesday, October 27, 2015. This is still the morning edition on I-24 News. The name's Ross, Meredith Ross. Thank you for staying with us, and I think you can guess where we're going with this. After a near decade of Her Majesty's Secret Service, Daniel Craig is putting down his martini, naturally still shaken, not stirred, closing that revolving door of beautiful women and handing back his license to kill. Like his Bond predecessors, Sean Connery, Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan, and Timothy Dalton, Craig found the role of the suave super spy too taxing to continue. His final film, Spectre, in the iconic role, premieres in London Monday, and it's the 24th movie in the Bond franchise and the follow-up of the global smash Skyfall, which raked in over $1 billion at the box office. To hear more about the buzz around its release, we are joined in studio by Channel 10 culture editor Chen Lieberman. Good morning, Chen.
Good morning. And
Lieberman,
I drink my
Chen
coffee
Lieberman.
shaken, not stirred.
There you go. But first, let's take a look at the next report about the newly released movie.
Critics are already drooling over Spectre, but the brooding hunk rocking that tux seems double-O done.
The Daniel Craig pout. Right, are you familiar with, you know what I'm talking about? James Bond
really,
pout?
no. Shaken or stirred? Do I look like I give a damn?
Daniel Craig seems shaken and stirred by the press tour.
Do me a little pout, like, you know when he rolls over and he's there?
I think you need to move on.
So what's going on, James? They say you're finished.
Asked by Time Out London if he'll do another Bond. Now, I'd rather break this glass and slash my wrists. Follow-up question, do you care who plays Bond after you?
I don't really give a quite frankly, so if you're kind of asking me to go make a comment on it, I don't care, as long as they don't it up.
Craig and Bond both shoot first, ask questions later.
I don't stop to think about it.
But rumour has it Sony execs want him to cool it on the trash talk, getting all M on him.
You had no authority. None.
Sony had no comment, neither did Craig, although he did say this to ITV's Jonathan Ross.
I get to the end of this and I'm like, the last thing I want to think about is doing another Bond movie.
But you are doing one more.
I don't know.
For a rumoured $60 million a picture, Daniel, I'll do it. I'll even wear those powder blue trunks they made you wear in Casino Royale.
And let's take a look at the movie's trailer, and then we'll continue.
Goodbye.
This is happening now, right now, outside this building, down on those streets, in this world, and we're doing a disservice to the public to deny it.
Getting him's the easy bit. It's what we do with him then.
Okay, so I think there's no disputing that Spectre looks awesome, as does any Bond film now, especially with Daniel Craig. But Chen, what's so surprising to me is he just seems so done with it and almost so ungrateful, making for some pretty awkward interviews.
Yes, I know. I guess he's just tired of the whole PR thing about the whole movie. I think he's just like, he's sick of it. You know how much PR they're doing, how much press, how much buzz when a Bond movie comes out.
How many people would kill to be Bond? You know, what,
yes,
it's kind of like you don't appreciate it.
But there's something kind of cool to it, you know? They're like, you know, Daniel Craig is saying he doesn't want to do another Bond. That's part of the whole Bond magic, mystique, maybe. I don't know. I think that I never saw Daniel Craig as the typical Bond. I never really figured out. And I was really surprised when the last movie, Skyfall, when it became the highest grossing Bond film. I just didn't get it, because for me, Daniel Craig, that's not Bond. I don't know, something about him just doesn't add up to be this Bond persona. So it makes sense to me that he doesn't want to do another Bond. But it's interesting to see how this movie is coming out, and in the age of social media, there's this tension between the public and the public opinion and this well-preserved British diamond that is more like the royal family than other democratic procedures. And I think the audience wants to influence how the next Bond film will look like, but they don't really have the ability to do that, even though they have a Twitter account and they can write and say what they want the Bond film to look like. It's a very preserved icon, English icon. So let's talk about one of the social media debates that were going on before this movie came out. And this is about the next Bond. If Daniel Craig doesn't want to do it, you heard him, he wants to slash his wrist.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of weird. It's weird. Kind of cool, but weird.
Yeah.
So there's a discussion about maybe Idris Elba, a black actor, will be the next Bond and the first black Bond. But then the author of the James Bond books said that Idris Elba is too strict to play Bond. You don't say that about a black actor. You just don't say he's too strict. And he said, I don't mean it in a racist way, but I just don't see it. And other people, Rush Limbaugh even interfered in this discussion and said, Bond needs to be English. So and Idris Elba is now saying, I don't want to be the first black Bond. Like Daniel Craig was not the first blue-eyed Bond. I just want to be Bond. So it's interesting to see. I don't think they'll take him. I don't think they'll take a black actor because they don't want to see. They don't want to show that they're caving in to this Twitter debate.
Do you think they'll take, just kind of the classic Sean Connery looking, tall, dark, and handsome, the brunette hair? I wonder if they'll go back to the Bond image of what used to be.
It will be really interesting to see how they deal with the social public discussion, because really, like I said, it's an English diamond, well preserved. It's part of the English tradition. Yesterday in the premiere, the royal family attended the premiere. Will and Kate showed up. So it's really part of the English culture, and showing it change because of public opinion, that will be interesting to see. And also there's another discussion about the Bond girl, Monica Bellucci. She's 50 years old. She's the oldest Bond girl to ever play in this franchise, and she's 4 years older than her colleague Daniel Craig. So that's
pretty cool.
Nice.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Monica Bellucci. Of course, she's not the one on the poster. You have Léa Seydoux, the French actress. She's the one on the poster. But again, the fact that Sam Mendes, the director, gave her the role, that means a lot. So you see how Bond is also trying to consider the public opinion, because you can't ignore it these days. But again, the Bond film Spectre, it has the highest expectation because the last film was the highest grossing one.
How do you beat Skyfall, though? I mean, I remember just sitting in theaters. I was blown away. I loved that movie.
I felt like the whole film was just to get Judi Dench out of this franchise. Because that's how I felt. The whole thing was just an excuse to get her out of the franchise.
So when she was killed off,
when she was killed, I think she was relieved.
She goes.
She was relieved. She doesn't want to slash her wrist anymore like Daniel Craig.
What's wrong with this? Are people allergic to Bond after so long?
Well, maybe it's a very intense film to shoot. It's a very intense production, and that's why, I mean, physically it's really difficult for him to get in the role.
But
he's 46 years old.
I'm playing the devil's advocate. It's an honor. It's an icon. It's a legend. He'll always be James Bond, and I think personally he has done amazing things for the film. He's really evolved. You're seeing more emotions and vulnerability and human aspects coming from him as the James Bond character.
So you see it in his interviews as well. You know, it goes together. That's the thing. He also said in another interview, Daniel Craig said that Bond is a misogynist. Really? That's surprising to hear the guy playing Bond saying he's a misogynist. Of course he's right, but saying it in interviews. So he's putting more character, more ambivalency into the Bond character. Maybe that's what made Skyfall such a successful film. I know also the author of the Bond books said that the Skyfall is his least favorite film because of this more complex character and more emotional character.
It pulls away from the classic Bond story.
The same guy who said that Idris Elba, the black actor, is too street. So there's this tension between the old traditional Bond and the more complex, sensitive.
Well, one thing is certain, he's through. I just hope that his kind of scandalous comments don't affect the box office. Don't think it will. It's a pretty anticipated movie.
Exactly.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And also we're joined here in studio by I-24 News correspondent Tal Heinrich for the Viral Spot. viral, that is the web review. So kind of staying with entertainment news stuff.
I'm a bit out of this loop, this Bond loop. I gotta admit, I'm pretty much more excited about the new Star Wars movie than the Bond one. I'm this kind of a girl. Okay, let's start with jobs. Yeah, exactly. Now let's start with the spiral viral. Mark Zuckerberg, did you get to see him online speaking fluent Chinese? Well, it's very, very impressive. He gave a 20-minute speech in a university in Beijing in front of a full Chinese audience in fluent Chinese. And let's listen to it first, if we have it.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
或者怎么解决问题？所以我想要讨论一个不一样的问题，不是怎么。
He should say Bond.
Yeah,
He should be the next Bond.
He sounds professional, right? I mean, some people criticize him that it's not really fluent, it's not really, it's not a high-level language, but exactly.
I would never do that.
So, and actually he got criticized because he started wearing this T-shirt very, very often, this gray T-shirt. This is his new trademark.
Yeah.
Yes, gray T-shirt, think about it. I see your face. No, so the reason why he speaks Chinese is because he's married to Priscilla, his Chinese wife, and he admitted that he wanted to learn the language in order to communicate with her grandmother. But maybe also there's some business saying behind this because, as you know, Facebook is blocked on China, so 600 million users are not able to use Facebook.
And they've had to come up with their own, like Weibo is Twitter. They had to come up with their own social networks.
They even have their own WhatsApp for it. But yeah, so maybe it's a good measure to take.
To bridge
Chinese
gaps, perhaps.
classes.
But I will say impressive. But
very impressive. He posted it on Facebook saying, my first ever Chinese speech. It wasn't his first, actually, because he had like questions and answers session in last October, but now he nailed it.
I wonder if he speaks Hebrew,
Yeah.
I wonder.
He could learn it, exactly. That's for sure. Okay, and now imagine an Irish girl and a British girl meet in Germany. Now, this might sound as the start of a new joke, but no, actually, these girls are identical strangers, non-related, and they look exactly the same. This is incredible. Can you think of encountering another Meredith just on the street? I mean, it's
or another Tal. It's pretty.
Exactly.
It's pretty strange. Yeah.
So they were taking part in this exchange program. And people started asking them, were you here before? No. Did you go to the bar? I just saw you. And that sounded strange. And then Kiara, this is the British girl, she said, when I was going on nights out, people were starting to ask me if I come here with my sister or a twin. And then I didn't know what they were talking about in the beginning. So I was just like, no, I'm here by myself. But then after they met, and then they eventually became very good friends. They feel this bond, huh? They feel this bond. I'm not funny.
Nice.
They feel this bond, special bond between them, just because of this resemblance. But actually, they didn't see it at first. Only people were telling them.
Interesting.
I have this girl who keeps running into me in a bar, and she claims that we're identical, and I don't see it as a compliment. And she keeps taking pictures with me and posting it on her Instagram. She's like, "I'm identical."
Yeah.
And I was like, "No,
no." See,
no, but
she's not watching this.
They really look like.
Yeah.
And now let's move on to a very funny item. Well, depends who you ask. The Lisbon airport in Portugal was experiencing some moment of deep embarrassment, I would say, when people were observing on one of the screens the baggage claim a porn movie.
Yes.
So yes, we understand this is what it looks like. This is a porn movie. But what is even more ridiculous is the official announcement made by the airport spokesman. Now listen to this. He says, along one of the luggage mats from Lisbon airport, a TV was tuned without sound, to a Portuguese generalist channel. This is not a porn channel, he says. So this is
what they watch.
Which at the time they ran a movie. Exactly. I found this official statement was very, very funny. And now, because I mentioned the Star Wars before, let's move on to Odessa in Ukraine, where a former statue of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin was transformed into a Darth Vader statue, and this happened. Wow. yes, they decided this happened following a recent law which bans communist symbols in public spaces.
So just put a helmet on it, and there you go.
And now you said helmet, but the helmet is very special. Here's the Darth Vader one. Exactly. It's a Ukrainian artist who's responsible for this transformation. You gotta admit that Lenin is underneath it. It's still inside.
Okay.
So he just transformed into Darth Vader. And the helmet itself, Meredith, contains a Wi-Fi hotspot. Which is, you know,
sure, why not?
It's the exact opposite of communism.
It also
you know?
throws candy at children.
Exactly.
You know? Like, why not? Just make it go all out while you're at it. Well, that is all the time we have. But thank you for this, Darth Vader. Interesting stuff, Tal. And thank you, Chen, of course, for all the Bond stuff. And moving now to tech news. We'll discuss that later on. But stay tuned for more of the morning's headlines. Welcome back to the morning edition. We are joined now by the Economy Magazine correspondent Daniel Roth. Good morning, Daniel. Good morning. So what do you have for us today?
Susia. Susia is both the name of a settlement in the West Bank and a Palestinian village. We're talking about the olive harvest, which is every autumn. This is kind of the center of Palestinian agricultural life. And we've got a short video look at it.
Let's have a look.
The olive harvest holds considerable importance in Palestinian society, and in the 350-person Palestinian village of Susia in the West Bank, the olive is a central facet of life. Despite a rise in violence and ongoing attacks on Susia residents and on olive trees by neighboring settlers, the olive harvest is a staple event. Every year during the autumn months, Palestinian families and communities, as well as friends, come together to shake the trees down and gather their olives.
طبعا الزيتون هو ضروري جدا للفلسطينيين اولا كمان هو في المعتقدات.
The Palestinian economy relies greatly on the production of olive oil. In this respect, Susia village is an important building block. Depending on the rate of production, some of the olive oil is designed for sale and some for our own use. This year, we're expecting to see a drop in production, especially because of the continued attack by settlers on our trees, some of which are 35 years old, and this leads to reduced production and a reduction in the quality of olive oil.
عمره 30 سنة 35 سنة وهذا بيؤدي على ضعف الإنتاج في هاي المنطقة.
The olive is a symbol of peace and connection to land in what the World Bank has described as a highly agricultural economy. According to the World Bank, up to 45% of cultivated land in Palestinian territories hold olive trees, and 15 to 19% of agricultural output can come from olives. The majority of the olives go into making olive oil. Good yields and bad alternate by year, and according to Oxfam, the average output was 17,000 tons for the years between 2001 and 2009. Around 100,000 families look to the olive, which is primarily sold in local markets, for livelihood, according to the World Bank report. Beyond its economic importance, the olive is a fundamental part of Palestinian culture.
The season of olive picking is a blessing to us. It's our livelihood. The olive tree is blessed by Allah. But this year, the season of olive picking was met with fear and anxiety. We can't even access the trees and check up on them. We can't predict what the settlers will do to us. And also the IDF. They operate together. There is no safety.
After finding the remains of an ancient synagogue, Israeli authorities have expelled Susia's residents twice from their land since 1986, and they've moved on to different portions of their agricultural land since then. Israeli authorities maintain that the village, which sits on the residents' private land, was built without the necessary permits inside Area C, which is under full Israeli civil and military control. Israel's High Court recently upheld that position and denied a request for an injunction to stop the demolition orders. Even as they face the possibility of another expulsion, agriculture, from livestock to honey making, a jar of which goes for 50 shekels, forms the center of the village's economic life. The risk in reality here has been a rallying point for many over the years in joining Palestinian communities in the harvest.
Yeah, I'm here to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians who live under occupation by Israeli military rule. We were pulling the olives off the tree, and we did that for a little while. And, we were talking while we were doing it. And then at a certain point, we all took a break, and, we all sat down and ate some pita with some olive oil, and drank some tea, and then went back to work.
The olive remains central to Palestinian life, and the olive harvest remains a symbol of the relationships between the people here. This is A. Daniel Roth in the Palestinian village of Susia for I-24 News.
Okay, interesting stuff. Good you got to go see that and spend a day with them and really see how the process goes and hear how it affects their life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was, I also, at the end part of the story, kind of focused on these international volunteers coming, and in particular, this was a group called the Center for Jewish Nonviolence, and I had the chance and opportunity and privilege to kind of be a part of some of those planning phone calls about how they were going to take part, and it's very, very clear. That the olive kind of, both in mythology and, in reality, is really a symbol of peace.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, through your whole report, I was thinking how ironic is that the olive branch is the symbol for peace.
Yeah, and it's a source of connection for these, volunteers and Palestinian families coming together. It's also deeply, deeply ironic and I think challenging to our view of what's going on, that the olive tree, by some estimates, hundreds of thousands of olive trees have been destroyed by Israeli army and settlers, Palestinian olive trees since 1967. So it's also at its base the symbol of peace. It's also the symbol of sort of the challenging reality there about how hard it is to think about solutions, how hard it is to think about how people may see a sustainable future. And at the end of the day, that's really the crux of the story, is kind of the olive as a source of livelihood, the olive as a source of economic sustainability.
Absolutely, and I mean, in your report, it just focused on one family, really, one small group. I mean, this is a widespread issue across the West Bank.
Right. It's one of the reports that went into this story was this World Bank report that's just about 10 years old now, and it's one of the better reports with the better numbers. But actually, the number has gone up. So there's just over, instead of just under, half of arable land in the West Bank is used for olive growing, and so it's an incredibly important source of sustenance for about 100,000 families. And again, that's a 10-year-old number. We're probably talking about much more than that now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's certainly an issue, hopefully, will be solved at some point soon, but it's obviously a part of this deeper conflict. Daniel, thanks so much for this.
Thanks.
And for the latest in tech news, on a very different note, we're joined in studio by the Tube correspondent Shai Ringel. Good morning, Shai.
Good morning.
So you have some tech stuff, a little lighter than what we've been discussing here with Daniel.
Yeah, let's go to Facebook. Facebook introduced a new search engine. They've been working on a search engine for quite some time now, but now they promise this will be it. This will be the place where you can search every post, every news article that was posted on Facebook, and what people are saying in real time. We have the introduction of the new Facebook search. That's it.
Searching on Facebook is better than ever. You can get suggestions as soon as you start typing to quickly find the information you're looking for.
That under certain circumstances, liquid water has been found on Mars.
And the results are organized, so you can find the top posts from the top sources and your friends. You can easily find the articles people are talking about to quickly join the conversation. Plus, with the expanded search features, you can stay up to date on topics you care about and see the latest posts from your friends and the public. Now you can find up-to-the-second posts on what the world is saying about the topics that matter to you in real time. Search on Facebook.
Okay, so this is only within Facebook. Let's just clarify.
Yeah, the idea is that Facebook wants to be a kind of a search engine. They cannot be Google. Google will always be that place you go to search most of your things. But Facebook can bring...
It's not true. Ask Jeeves. Ask Jeeves. I'm with it for a decade and I'll never stop.
That still exists?
I'm just joking.
Oh, I haven't heard about Ask Jeeves for 15 years.
So Facebook wants to be a kind of a place where you can search for relevant stuff to your life, like bars, pubs, places you can hang out in that are more relevant to you because your friends like it, and your friends are talking about it and they reviewed it, and you can also be watch what your friends are saying about a specific topic. As for now, Facebook has been this kind of news aggregator where it says, okay, you don't need to search anything, I'll bring it up to you. If it's something interesting, if it's something I think you'll like, you'll get it up in your news feed. Now, it's been kind of working and kind of not, because a lot of people have been complaining that they get all those news stories and ads that are not that relevant to them, and they want to search inside of Facebook. So it's a really good step for Facebook to take. But as for competing with Google, they have a long way to go. The main problem was that they didn't know how to index their entire base, the entire database. And they said that they indexed the entire base up to when Facebook was established. So it's more than 10 years. The search engine is hit and miss. Hit and miss at the moment.
Yeah. Which is terrible for a search engine to be hit and miss. It should always be hit.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Literally hit.
Yeah. This is the main problem. Facebook has been introducing a search engine for quite some time now. They introduced one a year ago where they said, now you can search friends. Friends who know friends, friends who are looking at these friends, and it was terrible product.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I remember that, I must say.
And Facebook are really, except for Messenger, they haven't had the big hit outside of like the Facebook realm.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have one next year with the Oculus Rift, with the virtual reality headset. But as of now, Facebook used to be a small company. They've grown in the last 2 years a lot.
Exponentially.
Yeah, and still they haven't brought us a product that is working well outside of Facebook. And they want Facebook to be this operating system where you can search everything, where you have a messenger where you can connect to everybody. In that messenger, you'll have which is kind of a Siri assistant, a voice-activated assistant, where you can search for posts that your friends searched, and still none of this really works. Everybody's on Facebook, and Facebook is broken.
Oh, well, that's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a whole kind of like divide and conquer methodology that it seems that Mark Zuckerberg's going after.
Yeah. So this is Facebook and Facebook search. I don't know. It looks like they've been working a lot of bringing search capabilities to the users, and Facebook cannot have all those misses. They had the operating system for the Android phone. They've been working on an operating system for quite some time. They've been hoping that we'll stop using the rest of the web and use only Facebook. And that idea hasn't caught up yet.
Well, moving on to something I never thought 2 words would go together, Wix and music.
Yeah.
So, so how does that work? What's going on there?
Israeli company Wix, I think one of the better startups in Israel.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of Americans know Wix because it's
to celebrate the launch of Wix.
It's a building site. You can build your own site there. And Wix have been working on a new service that's called Wix Music, and it's just the beginning of a specific types of services for specific type of people. We have a video explaining what it means.
Cool, let's have a look.
Wix Music gives you everything you need for your music online. First, create your Wix Music website. It's easy, no coding needed. Sell your music directly from your site. Upload and let fans listen before they buy. You can easily keep track of sales and stats. Distribute to over 120 of the biggest streaming services and online stores. Wix Music makes it easy to create a professional electronic press kit. Send your EPK to booking agents, promoters, labels, and press. Add an online store and sell all your best merch straight from your website. Ultimately, nobody matters more than your fans. Use Wix Shoutout to send beautiful emails with album releases, tour schedules, and more.
Okay, so let me get this straight. This is really beneficial for musicians who are trying to get their name out there.
Yeah. The idea is that they're saying, okay, record labels, who needs that? Come to Wix, we'll let you open your own website, have your, we'll distribute your music to iTunes, to Spotify, to radio, to everywhere it needs to be. You can also have a store where you can sell your own music.
Wow.
And we will not take percentage of that. You will pay monthly for our services, but you will not take percentage of selling not music and not merchandise. And you will also be able to sell real merchandise.
That's pretty revolutionary. I mean, that's going really against the system, against the man of the music industry.
Yeah. They've been working now. The face for the entire project is Macklemore.
We saw that in the video. That's very
horrible,
cool to have
horrible
an artist
rapper,
like
but
very influential, very famous. But that is all the time we have, Shai. I do want to hear more about this, so just let's step out of studio after this.
Okay.
But that's all for now. Join us again. Thank you, Shai. For tomorrow, the same time, same place to start your day off right. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.